Hello, friends. I'm Pastor John Fleming of the Open Door Churches of Salem Kaiser, here to bring you the first of our three pastoral devotions during Holy Week. This week, we will be using the lectionary passages. For those of you who aren't familiar with the lectionary, it's a 3-year cycle of readings, and for Holy Week, it includes readings for every day of the week instead of just the days on which we might think to have worship and that kind of thing. So I have selected for this devotional the Old Testament reading. It comes from the 42nd chapter of the book of the prophet Isaiah, and I'll be reading verses 1 through 9. Here is my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the nations. He will not cry or lift up his voice or make it heard in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a dimly burning wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not grow faint or be crushed until he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands wait for his teaching. Thus says God, the Lord, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread out the earth and what comes from it, who gives breath to the people upon it and spirit to those who walk in it. I am the Lord. I have called you in righteousness. I have taken you by the hand and kept you. I have given you as a covenant to the people, a light to the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prison, those who sit in darkness. I am the Lord. That is my name. My glory I give to no other, nor my praise to idols. See, the former things have come to pass, and new things I now declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. God's word of hope for all of creation. Thanks be to God. I've been thinking quite a bit about justice. It's sort of part of my work, for one thing, of course, and I think that has become even more important to my work here in Oregon, in a sense. Not that it wasn't important when I lived in Texas, but it's a different kind of thing. It's something that's almost like a job expectation here, instead of something that I offer sort of as a prophetic witness. And I have been thinking, particularly this weekend, as we have had yet another event around the state capitol. I haven't been down there. I don't know any of the details about it. I have simply heard about it from some of our servants in the Open Door churches who have a very keen eye for what's happening in our community. And I think about how it is that when we have events in our community that bring into question what our role as the church might be, how it is that we seek justice, not for ourselves, but for all people. Justice, this word that is often derided among the Christian community. I remember not too long ago how it was that there was a prominent evangelical preacher who was suggesting that if your preacher talks about social justice, then you should run as quickly as possible. And yet here we have in this passage, just in the first paragraph, the very first paragraph of this relatively short passage, that God delivers through the prophet a message that includes the word justice 3 times in one very short passage. And there's a promise with it too. There's a promise that comes along with it, because the promise is that God will not rest. God will not be subdued. God will not be bruised. The servant will not be bruised and battered until justice is established. We have to remember that God's conception of justice is not the same as what we think of as human justice. As we know, human justice is often unevenly applied and even unavailable to some people. But God's justice is not only evenly applied, but it is available to all people. And it is our role to serve the one who was the servant. It is our role to step into that place and to continue the work that Jesus established when he went to his hometown at the very beginning of his ministry, unrolled the scroll of the prophet Isaiah, and read those words. I come to open the eyes of the blind. I come to deliver the oppressed. And I come to announce the year of the Lord's favor. And Jesus claimed that place to the people in his hometown. He said, "Today, these words have been fulfilled in your hearing." These words of justice. And here we are, thousands of years later, literally thousands of years later, still seeking the most basic level of justice that reflects God's will for human society. Perhaps what we need is to follow Jesus in his footsteps, riding into the face of danger. But there's also something that we need to remember. Because one of our first reactions, whenever we see injustice, those of us who burn with this passion inside, to see justice established, one of the first things that we do when we see people railing against justice is to raise our voices as well and to try to drown them out. I'm not sure if that's really the right way. I have the same reaction. And we certainly have to say something. But what we have learned, or what we can learn, I suppose I should say, from the story of Holy Week is that Jesus did not establish this kingdom to be a kingdom of worldly power. One of my favorite things to think about during Holy Week is my wife Rana and I have a joke about this, long-running joke. It's not very funny, I guess, probably, but this part of the story in which Pilate says, "Are you king of the Jews?" And Jesus says, "You have said so." And I've always sort of smiled and laughed about that passage because I want to say, if I was Pilate, I would say, "I did not say so." I asked you a question. And Jesus said, "You have said so." It took me decades to really process that and try to figure out, kind of have some conception of what Jesus might have meant in saying that. And I finally settled on this explanation that he wasn't literally saying that Pilate had told him he was king of the Jews. What he was saying is, you're using a term that speaks about worldly power. You are using the term king to apply to me. And that's not the right word. So you have said king. That's not the word that I would use. Instead, The word that Jesus might use is the word servant. These are all weighty matters, of course, but they are important. And they never really go away. Because as all of us know, as soon as some goal along the road of justice has been achieved, another one comes up. Some new horizon for us to seek. But God is with us. Thanks be to God.